All right, I think we are live. So today I want to try something a little different. Instead of working on a video by myself, I'm going to live stream it. And there's a good chance that it will be just by myself, just the same. But who knows, man? Maybe someone will join, and ideally somebody will interact and ask questions and yell at me and tell me I'm an idiot. Um, so a little context to this video. I want to talk about how to be more intelligent, or how to at least fake it. As in, what is intelligence? I don't even know what it is, man. It's a crazy thing, and I need to figure out how to. Mm, all right, this should work. Okay, I think in case anybody says something, I can at least see. Um, by the way, I've noticed my English is getting worse every year, so I kind of apologize for that. But it is what it is. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. I've got it. We're all set up now. All right. Let me restart this so I can edit it and post it as video. Okay. We'll put this in this screen. We'll put this in here, and we'll put this in here. Okay. Now I'm really ready. Now I'm ready, man. Okay, so I wanted to make a video and talk a little bit about intelligence and how I think you could be more intelligent. And I'm not saying you're not intelligent. I'm not saying I'm intelligent. I'm just saying that people seem to feel like I'm intelligent. Sometimes. There are often times when people don't think I'm intelligent, especially my wife and my kids. They seem to think I'm a very ignorant person. But all jokes aside, um, so people seem to think I'm intelligent, and I wanted to make a video about intelligence and what I think about intelligence and what I think is possible for you or anyone to do to be more intelligent, because for me personally, I don't feel that intelligent. And I kind of realize I'm intelligent in the way that I can think of things that people don't often think of, or I can quickly do math in my head sometimes. But Mm, I'm sorry. I don't know how it works. How can I even know? I don't know. All right. So what I've done is I've created some notes, and I kind of wrote about what I wanted to talk about, and I was hoping that perhaps this could help you be more intelligent. Okay, so when we talk about intelligence, the first thing I want to point out that I don't even know what intelligence is, and I don't know if there's some sort of official term or explanation of what it is, but I think intelligence is overrated. I don't believe in IQ. Maybe for children, it's something that they can use to see how smart children are, but I think intelligence and IQ and all these things, right? I remember like one of the first times I really started thinking about IQ because when I was younger, I was really into intelligence and being intelligent and having a high IQ. And I did tests and I got invited to Mensa, which is like a group of people that want to be intelligent and proven that they are. Um, it was funny because I got invited to Mensa to do an official test because I did a test on the website and I got a high score. I got a high score. And then they invite you to do the official test at their location. And then I forgot the appointment. And so they invited me again, and I also forgot that appointment, which in my eyes was proof that I failed the test, right? So the first time I really got into thinking about IQ and how it works, the first thing I was thinking about was what if I'm the most intelligent person in the world? Who's going to test my IQ, right? The test for IQ has been made by people, and maybe they've made the test or they had the test made by the smartest person they could find, but this test is looking through some sort of perspective at intelligence, right? Whoever made the test to prove intelligence should know what intelligence is, right? And how you can measure it. This person should oversee intelligence, should be the ultimate intelligent person, and should know how to test for intelligence, for all intelligence. And then, right? And I get that you have questions concerning math and language and logic and all these kind of things. And the speed with which you answer and the types of answers you give, they tell us something about how good you are at doing math and, you know, seeing through logical problems. So I kind of get that there is something in the IQ test that will tell you something about someone's IQ. And again, especially when it comes to children, I think there's something there. But when you're older, I think this whole IQ and intelligence thing becomes kind of a silly thing for you to think about and to focus. I think if there is anything, there is interest that you have, the effort you put into things, and the time you spend with it. Right? If we talk about knowing something or being able to remember something or seeing something for what it is, it's just usually done by spending time. So if you want to be smart about a subject, you have to put in the time. Now, when it comes to being able to more quickly pick up on things, or to be quick in your reaction and have an intelligent reaction, or to see through people's bullshit, right? Now we're coming to this kind of improvisation intelligence. We're coming to this place where it's your perspective and your processing that is important. And I used to think that processing was about having some sort of raw processing power and maybe have a lot of knowledge inside your head to process against. But as I got older and older and I tried to develop myself into a person who could see things as they were, what I found was that in the end, most of the gains I made in intelligence were about seeing clearly and being able to not be obstructed by my knowledge or what I think was true or whatever, right? So, and I think I've talked about this in past videos where I would talk about seeing through things, because that's really how I've experienced my development, so to say. It's not about learning things and knowing things. It's about being able to see through things. And as you see through things and you can quantify them, your personal investment into them or your personal attachments to them, they fall away, and you get to see things as they are. And when you see things as they are, you get to draw more accurate conclusions or make more accurate hypotheses. And in my work, I'm usually like, let's say, a problem solver, where I help companies change or improve and deal with their biggest challenges. You know, the skill I bring to the table, of course, by now, I'm 45 years old, I bring experience. But most of all, I just bring interest, enthusiasm, and yeah, I would call it objectiveness. And I'm not one to believe in objectiveness, but I have spent a lot of time in the search of spiritual enlightenment to get myself out of the way. And that is something I've really enjoyed about developing or growing or changing or whatever you want to call it, is this effect where I'm not attached to anything, and that makes me see clearly, and it makes me ask a lot of questions. And I have developed a skill where I can go to the core of things, and I'm not one to fall for people's narrative and just go along and accept whatever they think is going on or assume is going on. So that leads me to, first of all, when people say, oh, you're very intelligent, to react in a way where I'm somewhat irritated, saying, well, I'm not intelligent. And I think the most important thing for me in that area is that I don't experience myself as intelligent, right? And I think I have a long text that we can go through and see what I wrote there, which was almost 2 years ago now. But you know, when I was young, I wanted to be intelligent, and then I got older, and then sometimes people would say, oh, you're very intelligent, and I would be like, yeah, oh, that feels good. And then later, I got kind of irritated about it, because first of all, what are you doing when you're saying someone is very intelligent, right? You're kind of making that person into something else than you are, right? That's my problem with people calling other people a genius, or right? They're trying to explain why the other person has a skill or an ability that they don't have without it being possible for them to have it. And I think when it comes to intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, but let's just call it intelligence, I think it's very possible for you to work on being more intelligent. And again, for me, that is a lot about being less obstructed. So But what I wanted to say is that as the person that is being called intelligent, I don't experience myself as intelligent. And I think that's what I wanted when I was younger. I wanted to feel intelligent. And I thought, right, I watched movies and about Sherlock Holmes, and I read books about Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie and all these detectives and all these thrillers and all these stories where I was trying to be smarter than whoever, or trying to be inspired by the smart people in the book, because I wanted to feel smart. I wanted to feel in control. I wanted to be like, I know things. I know a lot of things. I'm a very smart person. And as I got older, I found that what I really spent my time on was trying to figure things out. And usually, if I figured something out, I lost interest and moved on to the next thing I tried to figure out. What I found for myself is that I liked puzzles, and not having a solved puzzle, but working on a puzzle, and preferably a very difficult puzzle, not someone you can just spend an hour and it's done. No. Give me a puzzle that it's solvable, right? I want to make some progress every now and then, but let me work on it for days. Let me work on it for weeks. Let me work on it for months. Just give me something that's difficult so I can torture myself but still make progress and then end up solving it and feeling great about it. And so what happened was that I got really comfortable through my interest in solving difficult things. I got really comfortable with not knowing and only trying to find out. And it got to a point where not only did I feel comfortable with it, I would feel sad if I wasn't in that situation, if I wasn't trying to solve some very complex thing, right? And that turned inward, and I tried to solve very complex mental things and philosophy, and I never was one to read books about it, right? I would read some book, like one book, and then I'll be okay. That's enough. I'm going to work on it now, and I quickly found, when trying to look for other people who were interested in, let's say, philosophy, that they were just talking about philosophers. They were not coming up with their own ideas. And if I were coming up with an idea, they would be like, yeah, that's, I don't know, this philosopher. You're just saying what Kant's saying. Okay, well, I don't know. I didn't read Kant. I'm just trying to figure this shit out for myself. Anyway, let's get back to the subject, because I wanted to talk about how to be more intelligent. And the point I was trying to make is that, to me, as the person that other people call intelligent, I don't experience that intelligence. Now, and this isn't meant as like being an asshole, but what I experience is other people's unintelligence. So what I experience is that people are struggling or dealing with the problems on a level that I think is totally not interesting, and I'm way beyond that. So I realized, like, oh, wait, these people are still trying to figure this out in this area, or they're trying to solve it by doing this, that, or the other thing, which I know is just never going to work. So I realized that I'm intelligent in the eyes of other people when I am in the situation where they ask me to come and help, and I quickly get an idea about the problem, and I have some ideas how we could solve it, and then let's say in a few days we make steps where they've been working on it for months and didn't get anywhere. So then I realize, okay, apparently I'm more intelligent. But just even saying that just feels dirty. It just feels like, what do you mean more intelligent? There's nothing there. It's just I'm looking at something. So I think I made that point now. For me, being intelligent is not an option. I'm always thinking about the thing I don't understand. I'm always wondering. I'm always trying to figure out something new. And then when I encounter other people, that is useful because I've solved many of their issues way before they ever did. And then, I can help them with their stuff and then move back to mine. I also noticed that it's difficult to connect the people with what I'm interested in because it requires more context and more understanding and more seeing through things than most people are able to muster. And also, I'm not attached to anything, so I can switch perspective all the time. I can have different ideas about the same thing all the time. I can entertain white and I can entertain black and I can then go to gray and then come back with purple, and it's all cool to me. I don't care, right? When people say you're an idiot, that makes no sense. I just listen to it and say, well, you could be right, right? Why do you think it makes no sense? Explain to me what you're seeing. It's very interesting. I don't care if I'm wrong. I feel like I'm wrong all the time. And the moment I'm right, I'm bored and I want to move on. So, I think I spent enough time on this. I don't know what intelligence really is. I don't think anybody really knows what it is. And to me, intelligence is something that other people label on me. I don't experience it. I experience not understanding things. And if I had to give you one tip on how to be more intelligent, that would be it. As in, don't try to be intelligent. Try to understand. So spend your time thinking and wondering about things you don't understand. And then when you do understand, move on because there's nothing there. And then I think if you do that for long enough, you will start to see patterns that become interesting, as in how you can solve problems, how different problems might have the same sort of, not say solution, but maybe the same type of, how do I say this in English? They originate from the same type of behavior or the same type of mechanism. So you get to have some sort of, let's say, experience and patterns that you can apply to thinking because you know, right? I think I mentioned these things sometimes in my video, but when I think about things, I can't help but think about them in ways of internal versus external, proactive versus reactive, thinking versus feeling, right? There's all these dualisms that I play with and not consciously like, oh, well, let me consider the internal versus the external. But it's just like there's this, like I'm always thinking about context. What's the context? Right? You want to solve this problem. Why is it even a problem? You say it can't be done. Why can't it be done? Have you tried it before? How many times have you tried it? So I'm just constantly putting everything into perspective all of the time, and you develop patterns in doing that, and really just asking questions and thinking about stuff is the best way to become intelligent. That's, I think, my main point. Now, when it comes to being intelligent, it is possible that I'm more intelligent than you. I don't know. I don't even know what that means. Maybe I have better hardware. Maybe I don't. Maybe you have better hardware, but I've just outworked you, or I've took a different approach to it where I know I don't want to call it a shortcut because I think there's never a shortcut. There's just a shorter route and you've been taken the long way. But, let's just say maybe my method of thinking is better. Now, the problem is, whatever my method is, I haven't been taught it externally, so I've taught myself, and I really don't know how. I don't even know what it is, so that's a tricky situation. But I do concede that there is the possibility that there are people that are more or less intelligent than me hardware-wise. I do concede the possibility that there are people who are more or less intelligent than me in thinking power or in ways of thinking. I don't know. I think whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. Just try to maximize whatever you've got and see where it gets you. Now, there might be geniuses. I don't know. I've never met them, but I've heard stories about them. Whatever, right? Who cares? If you're not one, don't worry about it. And so my point is, I think you should stop thinking about intelligence as something that you have, and way more in a way of something that you can do. And there also, I think it's a lot more about letting go of things so you can be intelligent instead of trying to get more things that will make you intelligent, right? I think it's about seeing clearly and coming to a place where you can improvise productively. Let's just call it like that. Right? The best you can do is negate your unintelligence. So stop thinking you know, or stop trying to come up with a solution. Stop trying to find the answer. Just play. Right? I believe that the awareness that we have is mostly the ego, which became aware of itself. It's not smart at all. When I think about me, I think of me as the cloud in my thinking, right? My mind, like the brain that was put in my body and its capabilities, they are endless and they are extremely powerful. And, right, I think they say you only use 10% of your brain power or something. And I think the reason for that is because you yourself are blocking the other 90%, wanting to do it, right? So you want to be smart, so you slow down your brain trying to operate it. If you let your brain go, it is flying. It's a supercomputer. But the point is, you want to be the computer. You want to feel like you are the computer and you are doing the thinking. And so in order for that to be experienced, the supercomputer has to go to 1% of its capabilities so you can operate it, right? It's like if you're driving some sort of AI car that can go 1,000 miles an hour in extremely busy traffic, and you're like, no, I want to be the good driver. And so you drive, and then you got to go 50 miles an hour because everyone would crash, right? I think that's something like that. Your brain is like a superhighway where everything goes extremely fast. And the moment you come in and start messing with it, everything just has to slow down because there will be accidents. So that's also why I say it's about getting out of the way. You are not intelligence. You are biased. You are the antithesis of intelligence. You're the opposite of intelligence. You are stupidity. So you aren't intelligent. You try to act intelligent, which is completely based in the value system and in the culture and in morals, right? If the outcome is good, then you were smart. If the outcome wasn't good, then you weren't smart. And for me, a big part of this lesson came from poker, where when playing poker and getting serious about it, you have to disconnect from the outcome of the hand. You can't tell yourself if you win the hand that you played well, and if you lost the hand, you played badly, right? If that's what you tell yourself, you will blow up and you will lose your bankroll. So you have to start to realize, because luck's involved, that, and not only luck, but probability, you have to realize that playing well means taking the action that you think is best, given the fact that you have limited information, plus you're not playing a logical game, you're playing a logical and emotional game. So not only are there the rules and the order of what wins or what beats what, there's also just the other human being, and you're playing against a human being, and that human being is thinking about what you're thinking about it. So it's a very complex game, and you really have to study your decision-making process way more than the outcome of the hand. The outcome of the hand is just some extra information, right? I mean, I would say 60% of the hands, you don't even see an outcome. You don't even know what the other person had. You don't even know what the cards on the table would be, right? It stops after the flop. Everyone is betting and it's done. So I think it's the same thing with intelligence. That it's about the process. It's not about the outcome. All right. So if intelligence was a skill and it's not about the hardware, then I think it's really about getting out of the way and let intelligence do its thing, or let your brain do its thing. And your skill would be determined by the level of being able to get out of the way, right? So I come back to having a clear perspective. I think that is the essence of intelligence. Now, a big point of this is I'm really against knowing. I tell my kids the same thing. If you have a computer where you have the CPU and you have RAM, which is like short-term memory, and you have a hard disk, which is long-term memory. My hard disk is extremely small. I don't store anything there. I think my short-term memory is just fine. It's just regular. But my CPU, that's what I like. I like racing. I like processing. I like getting a lot of input. I like just going crazy with the CPU. And, you know, I don't know if that's something that happened to me or it's something that I've developed. I don't know. But to me, I'm not about knowledge. I'm not about knowing anything, right? I remember when I was in school and we would get like geography and we had to learn the name of this or that river in freaking Russia. I would be like, someday, we'll just have a device that will show us every place in the world, which no one believed, by the way. But right, I just never got remembering stuff. I was like, remember? Why should I remember? But anyway, so I don't believe in knowledge, and the other thing is I don't believe in answers. Right? I believe in temporal answers, right? But to me, the answer to the question is the end of the question. It's the dying of the movement, right? The question is what creates movement, and the movement is processing, and processing leads to interesting insights. Answers don't. Answers cut everything off. So if intelligence is found anywhere, it is found in questions, not in answers. The only thing you can know or should know or try to know is that you don't know. That is really the only thing you have to know. And if that's a place where you can get to comfortably and relax with that, I think you're 50% of the way there. So wondering is where intelligence lives. Being interested is where intelligence lives. Observing. What you want to prevent yourself from doing is overlaying your ideas, your past, your personality, right? All these things you're bringing to the table because you are invested in the outcome. That's where you lose your edge, right? If you need to win the hand in poker because there's so much money on the table, you will lose the hand, okay? It's about getting that stuff out of there. You need to be open, and any answer is okay. It doesn't matter. You don't know, right? That's not knowing. Is being open to anything is valid because I don't know. So don't bring to the table what you know. Bring what you don't know to the table, right? Don't, right? Like, and I'm maybe selfish that way, but to me, when I come into a conversation, if people want to know stuff, they got to ask me because I already know what I know. I want to know what they know or they think they know or whatever, right? So when I talk to other people, especially when it comes to problem solving, I'm just asking questions all the time because I'm curious to know what's out there. What is there that I don't know? So when you talk with other people, you should try to learn something. And for me, it's a very simple rule. If you're talking, you're knowing. If you're listening, you're not knowing, right? So talking is where you stop thinking and you're just spouting out what you think. And when you're listening, that's when you get new input. Now there's a little, how do I say this? It's not completely true because for me personally, like when I do stuff like this as well, but right, I like to summarize when I talk to people. And when I summarize, I inject my own ideas and I make this narrative where I'm taking what they're giving me and I'm trying to check if I've got everything correct, but I'm also trying to extend the idea and check with them if that perhaps could make any sense. So you could say I'm thinking out loud, right? Because I'm talking, so in a way I'm not listening and I'm not thinking, so I'm in the no state. But I think when you're summarizing and you're trying to extend what you've heard into something new, that could work. What I did find in my life is that there are some people who enjoy that, and there are some people who will not enjoy that, and who will actually like kind of lose respect for you because they think when you talk, you say what you know, and thinking out loud and changing your idea and then coming back and maybe a day later and say, I thought of something else, then they're like, you're just talking all the time and I don't even know what you mean and I don't think you know what you mean. So thinking out loud is not something everyone appreciates, but to me, it's always been very helpful. Um, so, and I think when you're talking out loud with someone else there, it brings this extra awareness where you realize someone else is listening to you. So you're on the one hand improvising, but you're also curating what you're saying because you don't want to say something completely stupid. So it becomes this nice game of tension and improv that leads you to say things that are more intelligent than you could think of, is how I would do it, how I would say it, right? It's also when you record a podcast, right? I've spent a few years recording a podcast with a friend, which we didn't publish, but it didn't matter because recording that podcast got us into a different state of mind where we weren't just talking like friends and we weren't doing a presentation, but there was this middle between we're thinking out loud, but we know someone might hear this. On the other hand, we want to just say what we think. And this talking when you know is being recorded, it's interesting. And I think it's the same thing when you're talking to other people. Let me skip this for now because it's too raw. Yeah, I think the most important point, again, is that the moment you think you know something, you are blocked, you have stopped thinking, your brain just died. So intelligence, if anything, is a mindset. It's knowing that you don't know that facilitates more knowing. Curiosity for the world, for the other, for the context, for the situation that led to this situation. That is what makes you see things that other people don't see. If you are talking to tell someone how something works, you're blind in the moment. Now, context is very important, and I can't emphasize this enough. You see, context deserves many videos and books of its own. But context, let's just say that context is the playing field in which you are playing, and the playing field, or you could say it's the game you are playing, right? And the game always has rules. It always has, right? I used to say that if you have context, you then have relativity. You then have dualism within that context. You then have a value system. Now you can place things relative to other things. So context is what creates meaning. And the meaning is dictated by the context. The context is what tells you what is meaningful. And so you always have to consider that the context of the thing determines what people see. And people have their own context, but also problems have different context, right? I mean, even something being a problem is a context. It's saying or stating something as a given, which is a context, right? It's saying this is true and this is bad. But by saying it's true, you've already made an assumption, and by saying it's bad, you're just following that assumption, where if I accept that this is true, then yeah, that I understand this could be bad. But you have to question if it's true, right? You have to question everything. You have to... It's like when we talk, the way logic works, we think we are logical and we think we make complete sentences and we make complete thoughts and it makes sense, right? But it's like a narrative just takes you along, and there are so many holes in every narrative. Like when I'm talking, you might say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But if you would just like stop and play me back and really listen to what I'm saying, there's holes everywhere. We're just weaving smoke into something that appears to be something different than smoke, but really it's not. And it's if you think about the way logic works, it's more of a feeling than a true thing. And people can sweep you off your feet with their narrative that feels like it's correct, that feels that it's logic. But every narrative, every thing someone is saying is one sided. It's not the truth. It's always a partial perspective on a temporal thing. So you can't accept it. You can never accept it. You can accept it as, okay, well, if that's what you think, then I see why you have a problem and we can work on solving that problem. But it's not true. There are no problems. Problems are always in the eye of the beholder. And you have to figure out from what context this person is coming to make him think it's a problem. And not just superficially. Like, why is the problem? Well, we want to make more money and we're not, so it's a problem. No, you got to go deeper. You got to figure out all the other contexts around it. As in, it's a problem because it hasn't been solved. Why hasn't it been solved? If it's a problem, there should be a solution, right? Why haven't they thrown more money at it? Why haven't they thrown more people around it at it? Why haven't they gone around the problem, right? And this not just in business; it's just everywhere. Every problem, wherever you look, whenever you talk with someone, when you're trying to do a puzzle, when you're playing a game, there's like always these different angles to approach it, to question why this is so. And by doing so, you will figure out where it lives, in what contexts it's hanging, suspended, being this problem. What created this problem isn't a real situation, it's the perspectives around it. And you have to figure out what that is. So context is very important. You have to understand circumstances. You have to understand motivation. You have to understand the goals. You have to understand the history of whatever it is you are looking at. And this will make you be able to put things into context. And you have to not take that context personally. Other people take contexts personally. You just have to realize what contexts are in play so you can understand what has what value and what is logical and why it is logical. So paint a picture and see what logic is at work, right? Don't think in harsh terms like truth or false or logical or illogical. These are all subjective ideas. You have to understand someone's logic. You have to understand the problem's logic. You have to, right? You have to understand the mechanisms that create the situation as it is without judging. I think that's another point for being more intelligent is don't judge. Judging is not intelligent. It's going along in the value system, but to be more intelligent is to oversee the value system and to oversee in what context this value system is active and to see why the value system is, right? That's like next level thinking. It's not about picking a side in the value system. It's seeing through the value system and see how it operates. Thinking. If you want to be more intelligent, you have to think. And I like thinking. I do it often. But you have to think in wondering, not in knowing. So thinking means playing with, right? I think there's this term, I don't know what maybe it's in the arts. They call it creative destruction, I think. And I like to reverse it, and I personally call it destructive creationism, right? Like what I do in my thinking is usually take solutions and then I destroy them and then I take a step back and then I have the problem again, which was supposedly solved, and I can get to work on it again because now there's a problem when before there was just a solution, and because there's a solution, there's nothing for me to do. So I like to take the solution and just throw it out and just say it's invalid. What else could be true if that solution is indeed invalid? Because, right, if there's a problem, there's always solutions before it that created that problem, right? because a problem is just a side effect of a solution, so to say. Um, so when I talk about thinking, I'm not talking about knowing, I'm not talking about being or feeling smart. I always experience it as not knowing, as being dumb, as being humble, but arrogantly so, right? Because I'm thinking I can solve it, but I know I haven't solved it yet. So I know there's something that's smarter than me is, or more intricate, or that is kicking my ass, so to say. Um, and I approach like everything as being part of something infinitely bigger than what I could ever understand or grasp, right? And this comes down to my look at life and the world and awareness, where I do admit that in the end, it's all unknowable, right? If we talk about context, the primary context from which we sprang is inherently unknowable by the awareness that sprung within that context. So you could say we live in magic and we have created logic within that magic, but it's always magic because it's inside of that. So we can't know. And so you always have to be humble. You always have to realize there could be something at play that you just don't grasp and you will never grasp, right? I always say life is playing a joke and the joke's on me. So, and that's just my approach to life. I know I will never figure it out. And right, when I hear people talk about stuff on the internet and they're all certain of whatever they're saying and they're arrogant and they have a million followers, I always think, yeah, whatever, you have no clue. I know you don't have a clue because there's no clue to be had. But I understand why people are following those people, because they want to have a clue and they think the other guy or girl has a clue, so they hope that they can kind of get that clue from them. But it's a lie. It's a goddamn lie. So I always think with everything, even when I'm talking in a way that other people think is really smart, I always realize I don't yet understand. I remember this was something that happened to me when I was younger. I was sick, and as I was getting better, I could, right when I was sick, my brain just wouldn't work and it was really foggy. And as I was getting better, I realized I could never know if I was completely cured and if that cloud in my mind was gone. I could tell myself it was so, and I could tell myself that, yeah, I feel like I did before, but I couldn't know because there wasn't some objective thing that I could look at and say, well, I used to be at 80 and then I was sick, I got to 40, but now I'm 80 again, so I'm back. It was just a feeling of saying, yeah, I feel better again. And realizing that made me realize that I could never know if I was correct or optimal or maximal. So I always realized there's always things I don't understand. There's probably more to anything, and there's no point saying you understand because that just stops you from wondering if you have more to understand. So I'm always feeling dumb. I'm always feeling like things are too complex, too complicated, too much for me to grasp. And that fires me up. That's that arrogance where I say, well, I don't care. I'm gonna attack it and see if there's just a little thing I can pull on that will give me just right. It's like a Sudoku. If you just have one thing you can fill in, then at least you made a step. Now it might still be too difficult for you, but I can find one thing I can do, right? And then you just keep doing that, and then usually that gets you pretty far. And again, if you're doing that often and you're doing it all the time, then you get better at that process. You get faster at it. You see through basic things where you're like, yeah, I know how to solve that. So you can solve it really quickly. I usually try to make things smaller, right? I think you should always approach things holistically, but in order to understand them, you should chop them up and look at them and see how they work. And small problems are easier to solve than big problems. And, as long as you keep in your mind that if you've solved a few small parts, it doesn't mean you're correct and you should continue, and you should never look back to those first small solutions. It's just they give you some base to continue on, and then if you end up getting stuck again, you can just throw it out again and start over. I have a tendency to keep simplifying. Right? I may not understand complex mathematics, but I understand 1 + 1 = 2, and I can understand a few little more things, and I can accept that sometimes 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, and that's cool too. I know there's a lot of people that are very smart, that have a lot of knowledge about subjects, and I have learned that if someone really knows a lot about a subject and is smart, then he's usually able to explain it to you in simple words. And if you show curiosity and you're interested, then they will just keep giving you and giving you and giving you whatever you want. And if you ask good questions, they will appreciate it, and they will even open up even more because they will see you are truly interested and paying attention. And that is like the biggest compliment that someone can get who is into anything, because now he has someone to share his thing with, because most of the time he is alone, or she is, because when you're deep diving into a subject and you're becoming really smart at it, there's a very few people you can have a conversation with, and the people you can have a conversation with are usually your competitors or people that want to be smarter than you. So, right, just talking to someone who's interested and who's paying attention, they love that stuff. So that's something I do too. Yeah, like I said, here's arrogance too. The arrogance, the presumption that I can know a thing, that I can understand a thing, that something is knowable that I don't know yet, but I can do things to know it. And that's why I'm open and blatant with the asking of questions. I'm selfish there. I want to get to the answer. I want to, right? If you know something I don't, then I want to know it, because how come you can know a thing I don't know? And so, right, summarizing, following up with a question, that just is the way for me. It follows, it furthers my understanding, and I can check to see if what I'm thinking I'm understanding is correct. I don't think of questions as dumb or misplaced. Now, there are some people who use questions in a dumb way, but, I think questions are the answer, and there should be more questions in the world. I think questions are the way as well to check if someone knows what he's talking about, right? Usually 2 or 3 follow-up questions will either show that that person really knows what he's talking about, or they will come up with some bullshit story or start mumbling, and you realize I can't even listen to what you said before because you have no clue what you're saying. You're just repeating stuff. And I don't care if I don't understand, right? You could explain something to me 3, 4, 5 times and just like get frustrated. But if I don't understand, I don't understand. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I might not be as smart as you think, but you need to explain it differently, or I'm missing something, but we need to look at it again and again and again until I understand, because I cannot continue when you're building up your narrative if I don't understand a part of it. Then the rest of it is just going to be useless. So I believe my questions are always right. And if I have a question, then it must be interesting, because the question arose within me. So I'm not the one to claim my questions as being good or bad. The question is there. So apparently it needs answering. And if you claim to know something, you should be able to answer my question. And if you feel like I'm asking stupid questions, then why are we even talking? Because if you don't want to explain to me, then either it's because you don't understand, or because you don't see value in explaining it to me, then okay, well, that's fine. We can do something else. I mean, right? Experts seem to think that knowing is how they measure their level of expertise. To me, it's their ability to explain it to someone who doesn't understand. Where the only people who are exempted are the geniuses, because geniuses live in some area where no one ever gets to. So they've wandered off to a place where few can see or reach them anymore. And for them, explaining things in a way that the layman would understand is a whole different kind of challenge. which I don't expect them to do. So geniuses you use to solve problems. You don't use them to explain stuff to you. Um, all right, I think I'm gonna end it here because it's been going for quite some time in my feeling, and I still have a lot of text to go through, and I can't do it all. So I will leave it at this. Just let me know what you think. If it's total bullshit, that's fine too. It was just a test. Um, and I will just have to do a part two pretty soon. So if you were watching, I don't think anyone was watching, I don't know. If you're watching it later, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. And yeah, if you have ideas about intelligence or questions, let me know. And maybe I can do something with those in the future.